So as I was saying, my name is Irene Asuwa. I am part of Women's Solidarity Network. Women's Solidarity Network is a collective of women-based organizations and women. Ni muungano wa wamama na vikundi vya wamama ambao wanapigania haki za kimazingira, ecological justice, economic justice, haki za uchumi, reproductive justice, na mambo mengine ambayo tunakumbana nayo chini ya hizi systems zinatukandamiza. So that's Women's Solidarity Network. For the past 2 years, we've been having 2 or more. We've been having conversations on women and the rights that we are fighting for. So we always had conversations on International Working Women's Day, on May Day, the International Workers' Day, and also during the Pan-African Women's Day. And on that note, on the 1st of August, tarehe moja August, we will be at the Kenya National Theatre for a Pan-African Cultural Date. You're welcome. But we will also stage in, now bigger and better, the Muranga Women Strike Play. And you can get tickets for the play here. I'm confirming the site for the tickets. Yeah, it's Women's Solidarity Network on Hustle Sasa. So please get your tickets for the play. For those who are there, I'm very bad with dates, but one of the Pan-African Women's Day, we staged the play, and it was very nice. And this time, it will be better. So if you go on our social media platforms also, Women's Solidarity Network on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, X, I still call it Twitter. So you'll get the information. It's a historical enactment of women's resistance during the struggle for Kenya's independence. The strikes, zile maandamano zenye wamama walikuwa wanapanga wakati wa kwanza wa ukoloni, wakiambiwa wachimbe mitaro na waache kulima vyakula vyao, waende walime vyakula vya wakoloni. So this is what the play is about. The strikes that women staged against crop colonialism, against land dispossession, and really how women made the colonialists uncomfortable. They really didn't give them time. So that's what it is about. So today, Leo, we are going to have a conversation with women working in cash crop plantations. And amidst us, nataka kwa kama fellowship ya wamama. Kwa Kijaluo tunasemanga fuayo. Salimieni watu juu ya hewa. So we have our sisters who are working in the coffee and tea plantations, and we are going to hear from them. And we also have my friend who I haven't seen for a very long time, Susan, who organizes with the Kenya Peasants League Women Articulation, and we, because I'm affiliated to KPL as well, organized against GMO and against punitive legislations for food and seeds. Zile sheria ambazo zinatuambia hatuwezi jilimia na kujilisha chakula chetu. So kina Susan wanapigania uhuru wa chakula na wamefanya harakati nyingi kwenye mitaa, kotini, wapi tena? Uko mashinani wanapanga wakulima kwenye clusters, wakulima wanashare mbegu, wanajifunza namna ya kutengeneza mbolea ya kiasili na mambo kama hayo. So the Kenya Peasants League Women Articulation is doing all of that work, and they are all over the place. You will meet them in court, on the streets. If you go to the ground, you'll find them, and they also have a rescue center that you are welcome to support. We also run a solidarity kitty that you are also welcome to support with sanitary towels, clothing, whichever form of support that you want to give. I will welcome Ruzuna and Wairimu, I got your name right this time, who are going to lead us in the conversation we are going to have with our sisters from Kiambu, Gatundu, yes, from Gatundu, and also with Susan from Kenya Peasants League. Did I introduce myself? Oh, okay. Sometimes I forget to introduce myself. So I'm going to welcome Wairimu and Ruzuna, who are going to take over from me.
Hi everyone, my name is Wairimu. Some of you might know me from Until Everyone is Free, and I really don't have much to say. I'm not an expert on the subject matter, and that's why you have Ruzuna over here, Susan from KPL, what's Dorina Madoris? Lydia from Kiambu. But I just want to thank you all for being here. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Irene. African women on the front line. Yes, there's no liberation of anyone without the liberation of women. Cindy. So my name is Ruzuna Akoth. These days I'm not sure exactly how to describe. You can just say I'm a soldier in the fight for the liberation of all colonized peoples. So thank you all for showing up today. I think we are going to have a very informative and generative conversation around the condition of women peasants, particularly here in Kenya. And I think we will try and discuss it in the context of globalized, the global market, or rather globalization. So to begin us off, I would like to invite our guest women. I hope they don't mind to come sit with us here, because it would be nice for the rest of us to know who are joining us from outside Nairobi, right? So, Lydia, please, if you don't mind, I would love for you to come and join us in front here. We're also open to all languages, so tutatafuta Wakikuyu wako kwa room, Wajaluo wako kwa room. Yes. Okay. So, I want to give a background before I sit down of how we come into this space. There is a documentary that I hope, just a mini docu that I hope will be able to show some cuts, in which these women, Lydia, are talking about what it looks like and what it means to be working in a plantation, And I happened to watch, the documentary was produced by Dr. Njeri Kinyanjui, but I happened to watch it and I wanted us to have a conversation, especially those of us who are more visible than the rest of these women who occupy these spaces that largely prevent other women from getting to say or talk about their own conditions. And I feel like I'm one of those people, I have the capacity to move into spaces much more easily than women like Lydia can, do. So having watched that documentary, I thought that maybe it would be nice if the women actually come and we get to talk with them and they get to teach us a few things about that life, and we also get to engage with the economic implications of working in a plantation, and also from both feminist but also socialist perspective, to see those of us who I know we have different, some of us are feminists, some of us are activists, some of us are leftists, all those tags, you know, how the work that we do or the actions that we take affect these women negatively, positively, or otherwise. So that's what brings us here today. Yeah, so to begin, as we wait for some cards, I will talk to the women. Wairimu is going to be moving around with like sticky notes. So if something comes to your mind as we talk, you probably have a question for either of the women or just something, you can note it down and she'll bring it and we can be able to also engage with it. So karibuni sana. Okay. So let me share microphone. So kwanza tu utaji introduce kidogo, useme we ni nani, penye umetoka, yeah, wakujue, tujuane. Si lazima usimame. Si lazima, but ukijisikia.
Acha nisimame tu.
Sawa.
Hello to you all. My name is Teresia Wajiro. Kutoka upande wa Gatodo. Nafanya kazi ya majani na chai. I'm working with the tea, planting tea and coffee.
Okay, God is good. My name is Lydia Wairimu, and I work in the coffee farm. Yeah, in Thika, Gatodo North, Shania location. Yeah, I hope we'll be together and also enjoy the show. Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much, Lydia. So there were three. I will just let her introduce herself, and then I'll leave you alone, I promise.
Hello, my name is Maria Wanjiko. I'm from Thika.
Sort and then take it to a factory away from farm. And before the do this came, we were carrying it on our backs. So you are carrying the coffee on your back, and yet you have still a baby, and still you have a family to take care of. So you find that wakati unaenda shamba asubuhi, lazima uwe umekama ng'ombe, pengine umepatia kuku wako kidogo, na pia uende uka pick coffee. And especially kama kunanyesha na uko na mtoto, pia kuna maji inatoka kwa coffee, pia ina kumwagilia na mtoto wako. So it is so stressful, and yet still even the feeding, ile chakula yenyewe ujapata ya kulisha mtoto vizuri, because the money you get is not enough. And since you are the woman, kazi yako ni uende kwa shamba, mzee ameenda kwa kazi ingine. So you find that ukienda huko roho ni ngumu, lakini kile kidogo unapata bado utalisha mtoto, and you still continue struggling. Kwa sababu kama mwanamke unataka kuona watoto wako wamesoma, wamekula, na tena unakaa pengine pahali pazuri kidogo. Am I right? Yeah.
Yes. I don't know, I would discourage you from standing, because it would mean every time you respond, you
okay,
said. So just be comfortable. But thank you so much. Naelewa, like, wanawake ni kama tuko na shifts mingi kwa siku. Unafika kwa shamba, uko na watoto, kuna shule. So katika ile kulima majani chai, pia pengine kama unaweza ongelea hiyo malipo vile inakuwa, is it ever enough? Do you, like, mnapatanga opportunities za kuclaim ama kuagitate for better payment? Like, inakuanga aje wakati mnataka kulipwa pesa zaidi? Ni akina nani wako in charge na wanawadictatea pesa ni ngapi, itakuwa ngapi? na masaa pia zenye mnatumia.
Okay. The cashew, being a cashew rebel now, being the cashew, picking the coffee, you are paid. They have decided, the owners of the coffee farm have decided ile pesa utakuwa ukilipwa. So it is general.
Yes.
Kama per day, these days they are paying around 250, now 250 shillings. What can you do in Kenya? So, and then you find that even the time you're taking kukaa, unatoka saa 2, unafika saa 7. And then after saa 7, kuna ile selection. So you as a cashew laborer, you cannot dictate the money you'll be paid because you're under control of the owner of the farm.
Kuna vile like kama yenu like organizing, like kama wamama mnakuja pamoja mnasema leo tutakata kulipwa hii pesa, like mmejaribu ama
you cannot refuse, because if I refuse today to go to that, watoto wangu hawatakula. So you just accept what is being offered by the coffee owners.
Teresia, sijui kama uko na kitu unaweza taka kusema pia.
Mimi nataka kusema juu advantages and disadvantages of the tea. Kwa masaa mengine tunafunaga majani kukiwa na mvua. Kama hii masaa hii ni ya mvua. Tunanyesewa huko na pengine tuko na watoto kwa mgogo. Sasa tukitoka hizo pesa tunalipagwa, tunapeleka mahosi. Hiyo ndio shida moja ya majani. Shida ingine, wanaume wanaenda kwa bank wanakopesa maloni. Sisi kazi yetu akina wamama ni kuwa kama, hata niseme ni kama nini, kama magobo sao wazee kwa sababu ya malons. Sasa hiyo ni shida ya pili.
So from what I'm gathering, I would want just to kick the conversation up a notch. I'm going to invite other guests to join us. Susan, please join us. And Asuwa, also please join us. So, because from what I'm gathering, we can already see the connections between our gender and the economy and our positionality to the state or to the systems of governance. So, when women have to carry their babies on their back to go pick tea. Susan, how does that make you feel?
First of all, let me introduce myself. I'm Ruzuna Akoth. I come from Kenyan Peasants League. It's a movement of a smallholder food producers. Our activity, ideally, we focus on food production, but women being the major, playing a bigger role in the food production system, you realize that they face a lot of challenges. So, following up with the conversation around, to me, I feel that women are facing a lot of oppression, especially when it comes to them doing a lot of work, when it comes to the coffee, and also being that even if you look around, you realize that women are the ones who are participating more in the labor. But again, realize if you see what my dear sister is saying about the payment, to me I feel there's a lot of oppression going on there. Because if you could be working for 250 per day, it means that number one, the labor rights are being violated to me. And I feel again they are facing a lot of oppression with the work they are doing. And the aspect of loans coming in again, it means again that women face a lot. Because if I bring the aspect of women peasants, being I'm a woman peasant myself, I produce my own food. I'm also a peasant farmer. And the scenarios we have seen within our space, whereby women produce, but again, men are the ones who are in charge of the production. Access to market again become a challenge for women because women will not be allowed to access a market We have seen scenarios where violence are taking place, women being beaten when maybe they ask about the produce they have produced. And there was a case I was following up on last year of a woman who was brutally beaten by the husband because she came and the husband has sold everything, including the chickens. So in this scenario, we realize that again, these women are facing a lot of oppression, but again, what is being done? And one thing I've come to realize, and I always say in all the spaces I go to, women are being organized, but the women peasants have been left behind because no one is focusing on their issues or what they are facing, being that they are doing a major role. A lot of food we are eating are being produced by the smallholder food producers, but women are the ones who are doing, they are the major ones who are doing all of that work. But again, with the violences they are facing, the oppression, who is addressing these issues? So this is another question mark that we need to ask ourselves. And I usually say that if these women are not there, then again the food will not be produced. Because personally, recently I was in my rural place. I went to do weeding. You realize that it is the women who are in the farm, but men are just in the shopping center, maybe talking about politics or other issues, when women are the ones who are in the farms doing a lot of work. And then we have another issue, culture. So maybe I'll come to that later. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Asuwa, you can take the mic. Am I audible? Yeah. So I will cue you in back when the docu is ready. But I want you, Asuwa, to just take us back a bit to the historical, what that has meant, what it has been for women in a neoliberal, neocolonial economy, and that with regards to the agency of women and how, the state seems to respond, or is it gaslight women at every turn.
That question of taking us back to the first phase of colonialism, it may trigger because
sorry.
Allow me to digress a bit because
it's okay.
I blame you. But there's this craze about clean cooking. Mmesikia hiyo ya kwa mama sijui wanapewa jiko ya kusave makaa na sijui nini kina, and imekuwa kitu kubwa sahi. It has become this very crazy thing, and I find it very problematic because first of all, that thing that they call jikokoa, my grandma has it. Na niko sure pia nyinyi kuna mashosho walikuwa na hiyo jiko. But now suddenly someone invented that jiko to supposedly reduce emissions and save forests. Forests that women have been saving for millions of years. And so when she talked about that, the origin of the jiko ya kusave was that when the colonialists came, they bundled people in reserves and concentration camps and houses. I don't think I should even call them houses, but whatever it is they called houses, those structures in the plantation. And now because women could not have access to the forest, wamama hawangeingia msitu, but pia hawakukuwa na ardhi yenye wanaweza chuna mti ama wanaweza enda kutafuta kuni. And women also have to go to the plantation to work. So this jiko was something that women came up with because they couldn't go into the forest and they didn't have time to look for firewood. But now this jiko has become, again, a thing that is used to place the burden of deforestation and the burden of pollution on women. And so instead of focusing on the people who are actually literally burning the planet, with bombs and industries, especially people who are burning the planet with bombs and all military activities. Suddenly, for us to save the planet, African women must buy the clean cooking jiko to save the planet. And as they buy, someone benefits by counting carbon credits and claiming that he is offsetting emissions. So that is what triggered that thing. But now back to the plantation. So I come from the sugar belt. I grew up in Chemelil. And when we were having a conversation with Lydia, nilikuwa nafikiria shosho yangu, by the way, and my mom, because as much as my parents were teachers, they also doubled up as sugarcane farmers. And the way, and you realize the history of plantations, whichever cash crop, sugarcane, coffee, tea, flowers, it's the same thing. And I also grew up in a reserve. Moi later called them settlement schemes, but they were really reserves where people who had been dispossessed of land were bundled together. So my grandpa had space in a reserve. And that reserve was in a sugar belt. And you grow the cash crop right to your door, like literally a few meters from your door. And if you trace that, it's because Africans were forced not to grow the things that they grew every other time because the plantation owners needed these cash crops. So they didn't sugarcane for the factories, they didn't tea for them and for export, they didn't coffee for them here and also for export. And you look at the laws that surround the land and these cash crops. Na wanaweza confirm, kwa sheria hauruhusiwi kuuproot chai ama coffee. If you uproot it, you are in trouble. And the terms are very punitive. And women would go on strike because you have come to my land and you're telling me I can't grow food to feed my people, or for whatever reason that I grow herbs or whichever crop that I am growing, because now I have to grow tea, I have to grow coffee, I have to grow flowers. And you have dispossessed me of that land, but I still have to work on that land so that you pay me wages, so that I can use the wages to go and buy food that I could have grown myself anyway. And you also look at how in areas where these plantations are, land is like fragmented, like a graph book. So people are, nasikumbuki kama ni Lydia ama ni yeye alikuwa ameongelea vile shamba wamegawagawa tupande tudogo. So you can't really do anything on land that has been, and I don't know why we are so obsessed with, fragmenting land like graph books. And there's a time when the land debate was very heated. At that time when everyone was looking at Nyerere like he was saying some wild things. And he also said he doesn't understand. And he was asking, mbona mnakatakata ardhi kama vipande vya kanzu? Why are you chopping land like a piece of cloth? Like it's land, it's not something that you just fragment. And now when there's a really serious land dispossession that is happening in this country, both in the rural and in the urban areas, Nyerere's prophecy is really like glaring, because he said if we are not careful, we are going to reach a point where we are squatters on our own land. Alisema tukiendelea kukatakata ardhi kama vipande vya kanzu, tutaishi kama matwana kwa ardhi yetu. So we are on this land, but we also don't belong. Like we are on the land, but it is not ours. And they talked about that issue of titling. It's still the same thing, that you come, people are managing land communally, and then now you decide Carl is going to be the owner of the land, and he gets to have a title on a land that people were managing communally. And if you think about it, a lot of these things that we have normalized right now, they are not normal. Like, they don't make sense. Like, what do you mean?
It's easy. Like, ulizaliwa na shamba, ulikuja
Yeah,
na
exactly. What do you mean you own land? Like, you got it here. You did not come with it. You did not manufacture it.
invent it.
You did not invent, even that, nobody invents anything. I also have problems with inventing and innovation and the whole patent thing. But you didn't manufacture water, so what do you mean the Windows guy owns seeds? Like, he found the seeds here. And some of them, he was perplexed. I saw him calling one of our grains ancient grains. And I'm like, dude, that is like the 4th, 6th generation of milk. Do you know what ancient grains are? Like, that's not ancient. The fact that you have not seen it as a European doesn't mean it is ancient. So those things, and so the moment we started allowing that very wild, absurd thing that someone can own land, so then people just started becoming wild. And now Bill Gates owns 80% of seeds, and he wants to own all of them, and he's going around patenting every single seed on the planet. And that someone has a vault where he's just collecting seeds. Like this primitive accumulation. You're just collecting seeds and you put them in a vault so that you can give people licenses to grow things that you found here. Like, seriously. And so that's the title is also a legacy of colonialism and a continuation of that colonialism. And also the fact that some of these plantations are also, a huge chunk of them are not even owned by those men who have titles. They are owned by these companies. And I'm not sure about the reality in Thika, but in Kericho, those farms are not owned by people. They are owned by companies, and they are owned by foreign companies. And some of those plantations are on free leases. Just last year, it was when we came to the realization that Del Monte was paying 50 cents per year. And now they were saying that they're doing us a favor. They're going to pay 100 shillings per year.
Yeah.
Dominion Farms in Siaya was paying 21 shillings per year. In fact, people are making fun that them and university students are the same. Because at some point, the University of Nairobi students would pay 21 shillings for the hostel. So they were like, Dominion Farms and UN comrades are paying for the same thing. And so these leases, what do you mean you're paying 50? Mnajua sumuni nyinyi watu. 50 cents does not even work in this economy, right? I'm not saying cents of dollars and 50 cents of Kenya. Del Monte was paying per year. Dominion was paying 21 shilingi ishirini na moja. Who is a Luo here?
Me.
Walikuwa nalipa
Me.
ceiling prarioga chill. Like now 20 bob, now 1 bob per year. On our wetland, which they destroyed. By the time they left, it was really bad. And we can talk about these very colonial legacies of how women have always labored on plantations since the colonial time, and how that is still being perpetuated right now. And lastly, I would also say the other absurd thing is that people work on these farms and they can't afford to buy the finished product of what comes out of that farm. My grandma cannot afford a packet of sugar, but she has sugar plantations. Because there are a lot of competing things that you have to do. You have to pay school fees, you have to do. By the time you pay all that, sugar, tea, coffee is like luxury for you who produces it, because you cannot afford it. Pesa yote imelipa loan ya kusomesha watoto, umelipa rent. Now there is this land rates, umelipa hiyo land rates, sijui wengine wamelease, umelipa hiyo kulease. By the time umekatakata hizo pesa zote, you really, yeah, hapo kwa loan naweza rant.
Acha nikukatize
nimesoma na loan.
kabla waze kurant. Okay, we'll get back to the ranting. So I'm still, I don't want to get to like in the details of the documentary, but just to connect in terms of what you're saying and women in the plantations, is just to point out that like wakati wa hiyo ukoloni, you literally had women come queue up and they would be paid this 2 shillings, maybe 3 shillings a day, and then wanaenda nyumbani, and they had like the gardens, or sometimes they'd be given food allotments. The transition into the flag independence completely obscures these women. You know, there's just this blanket assumption that because people have been given flag independence, that the conditions of women change, but they don't. Instead, they get worse, which means they officially are now under the custodianship of the men in their lives, right? Wherein, like before, they were not exactly under custody. They were in charge of like the economic aspects of their life. Like if they earned the 2 shillings and they were in charge of their gardens, they had control and benefits, as hard as it was, of those resources at that particular point in time. But with, what was it called? The swinathon and everything, this allocation that specifically targeted male members of families, then women lose that control and benefit of the labor that they are doing. So you have them working in plantations. This time, they don't get to queue up for the payment. The payment has to go to the bank, and then the man has to come and pick the money. So they don't have a masivo, sinivo. So they lose. Whereas you're simultaneously compelled to celebrate an independence, your status as a citizen, you know, goes lower, it decreases. And that is something that I feel that those of us who, find them or say we are in the women's, I don't like the word empowerment, but those who work in that space don't seem to notice or to confront that reality. That the status of women, particularly peasant women, actually decreased with the flag independence. And the men gained mileage somehow, like they're most colonially pampered. They're the pampered colonial elites in a neoliberal, neocolonial era. So we find we have women who are essentially laborers without benefits. And that's the condition of a slave, you know. And I would like for Lydia or Teresia to just at least mtupatie a bit of overview, just so that people get clarity in terms of iyo ukilima kahawa yako ama ume pick chai, unaona, unapeleka kwa factory or whatever plant that it is. Wale wenye ndio husema, ule mtu wa kusema ni akina nani, unaona, ni akina nani. Na kati ya wale wa kusema, wanawake wanakuanga wapi, unaona, wanakuanga wameachwa wapi ama wamewekwa wapi, unaona. Just so that watu waone wanawake wanakuanga wapi, na pia waone kwamba even the structures that we create intentionally make it that women do not get to access, to control, or to have anything with these spaces unless it's when their labor is needed. Sijui kama nimeongea kizungu mingi but somebody else can help me.
Okay. So after we've picked the coffee, we've selected it, and it's taken to the factory. Mostly the management lies to the directors, those elected. And mostly they are men, because they're the ones who will have the time to go for the meetings. Women wanaambiwa wakae nyumbani. So even you don't have the finances to do the campaign to be elected as a director. So you find that women in leadership are very few. So even our representation huko hakuna. So unakuta ni wanaume. Ndio wako kwa factory na ndio wanaenda. Some even go to bro, wanatuambia walienda Mombasa kuuza kahawa. Imefika hivi hatuna. Na ni hii pesa tumeletewa. So you are just there as an object, just to throw the system iendelee na mbele. So if women are trained in leadership, we can also vie for those seats, if possible, if we are able to have the domain or the energy to move on. But still there you find that still there are some things that tie a woman. Maybe for those who are married, they'll be told, huko hamtaenda. So you find, unaambiwa hutaenda huko, elections. Ukienda utafanya hivi na hivi. So you find that your hands are tied, that you cannot excel in the leadership or even become a broker of the coffee. So you cannot be around. And then you also find that since even maybe going for the meetings, they go regularly, you are told they go for a seminar, maybe for 1 week, you are held in your home. So you find that problem of the leadership is there. So whatever the management says that you be paid is what farmers just accept. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you want something to add something to that?
Si hata hiyo ya chai inaendaga kama ya kahawa. Inakulangwa na brokers. Tukifika wakati wa kulipwa, pesa yote inakuanga imekulangwa na hawa brokers.
Maybe if I add to whatever they are bringing, I think it has been a biggest challenge, whereby the patriarchal structure take control and ensure that now, even if as much as women are producing, they cannot have access to whatever they are producing. And I think you mentioned something to do with land, which I think also we are focusing a lot as a women articulation in Kenyan Peasants League. And you realize that we are in a scenario where women can still not even access land. And again, realize these women are the same people who are supposed to produce. We are not even talking about ownership. Access is a challenge. And Ayla was mentioning an issue to do with culture, which again we have realized it is one of the major issues that is preventing women from not only accessing but also owning land. And then the issue of the seeds. KPL, we advocate for food sovereignty. We focus a lot on food. And we have the multinational companies again coming in. That is why within our space, we ensure that when we organize women, one of the things we are focusing on women banking their own indigenous seeds, because we believe in indigenous seeds. We don't do multinational. But again, we have the multinational companies coming in. The people they approach are women. And they are giving women seeds on loans. Not only seeds. We have the issue of they come with solar, they come with televisions, they come with cameras. So there's a cycle of debts that also surrounding women peasants because they know that a lot of these women are not educated. So they come with a lot of documents. You have seen these scenarios, we did these case studies. And because they will not read this document, they translate to them in a language that these women are understanding so that they can go for these seeds on loans. So you realize that most of the women who have joined Kenyan Peasants League, we start from the scratch, whereby now we start with giving them the seeds, because personally myself, I have my own seed bank. I live in Nairobi, I farm in Nairobi, I farm in my rural place, but I have my own seeds. So one of the things we do is we start organizing women with having their own seeds. And recently we started doing dialogue with men for them to understand that also women have the right to access. The reason as to why we are talking about access, it's leading them again to go to look for loans to now lease land to produce food, which again, they end up in the cycle of debts, which again we are trying to prevent. And then again with the issue of my sisters here bringing the issue of now male taking dominance on maybe the leadership position up to what they are producing. This is a reality. But again, how can we address these issues to ensure that now women also are included in the decision making? Because this also is a very big problem that we are facing today. Women not being included in the decision making processes. Men are making decisions for women, yet they are the ones who are producing. And then again, after producing now, wakirudi hata ukiangalia, hiyo pesa wamekula yote. So women end up again in the issue of poverty, because now they are still going to. But now we now are ensuring that we are organizing women. In KPL, we have started what is called Food Corp, to ensure that now the production that is coming from the farm, they have their own access to market without now somebody else interfering with the way the cycle of production is happening. So I think Asuwa mentioned the issue of capitalism and colonial, and I feel we are still in that cycle. Because as long as we are producing for others and they are the ones who are gaining the profit, it means that now there is no even a single day they will have control of what they are doing. But how can they now, as women who are in the coffee farm, ensure that now they are doing the same to have access to the market themselves? So I think also that is what we need to look into. Because it's also a time we take control of our own food system, whatever we are producing, without the capitalist system taking control of it and us having the ownership. We have the policies and the laws. But again, how are we looking at them to ensure that now also women are being included? I think this is something, to me, it pains me every time, being that I'm a peasant woman and we have women peasants within our spaces. And every time I see a woman peasant maybe going through a challenge that I know other women peasants are facing, it pains me. So what are we doing to ensure that now women voices are included? Thank you.
So Susan has brought up the issue of loans, and it's very important. Na kina Lydia watatuambia wanajipanga aje kama wamama. Juu wamama wakosangi njia za kujipanga. Sawa tunakandamizwa, lakini huwa tunatafuta njia ya kujipanga. But that giving women seeds on loans, but there's also the fact that corporations also take advantage of the vulnerability that they have placed women in. So wanaenda mtaa, wanawauzia hizo majikokoa, hizo clean cooking jiko on loan. But those jikos, homework. If you see a clean cooking jiko or the cocoa thing, go and read the terms and conditions. They are very punitive. You can't sell that jiko. You can't give it to another person. Because the person who has quote sold it to you at a subsidized price needs to track those credits, those carbon credits. So that's why they have those very punitive terms. You can't destroy it. Though people are nowadays destroying the cocoa. And yeah, if you have ever destroyed a cocoa jiko, more power to you. But the terms and the conditions say you cannot destroy them. Then there is the solar, which is very prevalent where I come from. Sijui kama nyinyi mnaletewa solar. And they bring you a very substandard solar, but the payment terms are out of this world. And at the same time, the other thing that I wanted to say that women also bear like a double, triple, quadruple, whatever burden when public systems are not working. Because if we had electricity reaching people, these people would not be coming to give women substandard solar panels. But because 70%, I was shocked, 70% of Kenyans are not connected to the national grid. Yet, we are producing more power. We are producing more than we need because, of course, we don't have industries. And we are losing 40% of what is being transmitted to people. Yet, 70% of us are not connected to that grid. Yet, we have projects that are sleeping and we are paying for that are not connected to the national grid. Women are paying fees with loans because the education system is damn expensive. And now it is expensive and bad. So people are taking loans to pay for education that is bad. And when we were having a conversation with Lydia, also, even when I was watching, when I think it was Lydia and you, na Teresia, mlikuwa mnasema pesa yote imeenda kwa loan. Though wewe ulikuwa unasema na Kikikuyu. But Kikikuyu at some point ina sound kama jumbled Swahili. So nilikuwa naelewa kidogo wanasema nini. But walikuwa wanasema pesa yote imeenda kwa loans, ndio? Ya kusomesha watoto. And I was telling them that at some point my mother's pay slip was like negative because all that money was going to pay school fees. And we were just 3. So I'm imagining women who have 5 or more children. Lydia said she now has graduates. So I'm imagining the burden you have had to bear to take them through school to university at a time when also universities have become something else. They've become very expensive. So women, that burden when also public systems are not working, it's women who still bear that burden because sisi ndio tunafanya kazi nyumbani, sisi ndio tunalipa school fee, tunalipa stima, tunanunua hiyo jikokoa kama tunatumia makaa, tunatumia ile ya M-Pesa inaitwa aje? M-Gas. Sisi ndio tunalipa maji. Na walikuwa wanasema by the way huko kwenye wanafanya kazi pia kuna shida ya maji, kuna shida ya hospitali. And because it's cold, people also get arthritis because they have to go to the plantations very early in the morning. So they are also bearing the burden of the failed healthcare system. And I remember there's a time we went to a medical camp in Muranga, and the medics were worried because women had like serious conditions and some of them didn't even know. So wakienda kupimwa ndio daktari anasema, ala, your pressure is so high, like your blood sugar is so high. But the woman does not know because the woman is busy. In the morning, they are in the plantation. In the afternoon, they have a chama meeting. In the evening, they have to be at home. Children have to be taken from school. End month, they have to, balance what has come from the factory, what's going to pay the loan, what's going to the chama, And so what Susan has said and it's not just solars and jikokoa. There are other things that they are coming and lying to women about. Even the very tiny amount of women that we can say now have titles to the land, they are also targeting those women with this Has Avocado project, like this super hype food projects and telling women, we can grow, you can grow this and you'll get a lot of money. And women sign those documents. And then you later realize they have leased their land for 40 years. if you've leased your land for 40 years and you are 50, you've leased your land practically for the rest of your life. So they are coming up with these things, these mechanisms that corporations are going into the village with. Just last month, I got a distress call. I don't remember from where, but someone was approaching. So the younger women chased them away before their mothers could sign those things. So they came and told them, there's a particular tree. It's a very useless tree, by the way. But they were telling the women that they can grow it, and now they will be like their bridge to the market for whatever it is that tree is made of. And that lease was 40 years. And I don't know, they like 30, 40, 50 years for some reason. It's usually 30, 40, 50, sometimes even 100. Corporations are very wild people. They are very audacious. So someone will come to the village and make someone sign 100-year lease. So that is practically giving away your land forever. And women sign these things because they take advantage of the fact that you don't have the money. Nikikwambia down payment nitakupea ya 1,000,000, hautakataa. Hapo unaanza kupiga mahesabu. Hii 1,000,000. Naweza lipia yule mwenye ako campus school fees, niingize huyu mwenye anaingia secondary. So they also take advantage of that. And if you have, even me, I have not seen 1,000,000 in my life. If someone says they're going to give me 1,000,000, I can get confused a little bit with my degree. So imagine someone who is slaving literally to get 200 shillings or 250. You tell them you're going to give them 1,000,000 right now and then, and you promise them that there's going to be more. So because of the situation that women are in, they sign those things, and those are some of the things that we also need to look into. But also these laws that government is continuously passing, these very punitive laws that also make people predisposable, because what they are doing in the current generation of laws since the previous regime is that they are removing the provisions that need them to get consent from people, that need them to recognize local communities. Wanazitoa kwa hizo sheria. So ukisoma policies na acts zenye zimepitishwa since time ya Kamau huyu mdogo, that is what they are doing. If it says anywhere there should be consent from communities, they remove it. If it says there you should make reference to the constitution on how communities and indigenous people should do it, they chuck off that place. If it has a public participation provision, wanatoa. So they put all powers on either the cabinet secretary or the president. Sasa wewe utafikia Ruto saa ngapi umwambie mko na shida ya chai? But bili ya chai inasema yeye peke yake ndio anaweza deal na hizo story. Bili ya mchele inasema CS wa agriculture ndio anaweza deal na mambo ya mchele. Same to bili ya dengu. So pia hizo ni conversations zenye tunafaa kuzungumzia. But mimi nataka kusikia vile kina Lydia wanajipanga. Jiwa mama hawakusangi njia ya kujipanga.
Of course, hiyo ni lazima, and I think we will tutamalizia hapo. I think just in relation to what you are saying, ile Lydia alikuwa amesema ati kama mama wakishasema hiyo bei huwezi kataa, si ndio? And it's because of your material condition, like you need that money at that particular point in time. I just want to add a level to it to say that it's not just taking advantage. They know it's very intentional on the part of the state and in part of corporates. You're completely under-resourced, and then the fact of your under-resourcement is what they use against you. Unaona? So it's like kuna ile mtu anawezaona huyu ni falafala hivi, wacha nicheze naye kidogo ni benefit. Unaona? That's taking advantage of. But the system intentionally denies you the resources with which to survive. or sustain a living. And then it turns you into a consumer of its own commodities. Unaona? So hamna stima, hamna nini tena? Hamna stima, hamna maji, hamna, the things that you need to survive. Alafu wanajituma na kuambia, unajua kama unataka upate maji, mimi nitakuwekea kwa bottle. Unaona? Unajua kama hawa wakupei stima, mimi nitatengeneza solar. But in doing that, corporations are only making money for themselves. They've turned you into their market. Unaona? They've turned you into this person for which they dump. Unaona? So it is not actually, it's not in their, like, siati wanakupenda, like, hakuna goodwill. If you were to actually have access to clean water, to electricity, then you wouldn't need solar. So they really need to sustain your under-resourcement. Unaona? So sometimes, even the wording, the language that they use matters. Because then you see yourself as somehow, I don't have a choice, so I have to, but I really, really wish for us to know that the fact that we don't have a choice is a creation of the system itself. The fact that our choices are limited is a creation of the system itself, so that we continue to consume the garbage that they sell us. So every time, the other thing I probably wanted to also mention was when Lydia was talking about how men are the directors and women, because of the double shifts, triple shifts that we have to perform in a day, that we don't have time to go to this. But the other reason why men are the directors is because they have the titles and they have ownership to these lands. If you don't have anything to your name, then you don't have a seat at the table. So it goes back to the system, to the structure that defines who gets to have what, who gets to have access to what, and that system. And I usually don't separate patriarchy and capital. They work, they're like twins. Sometimes twins are different. They are each other's. Your experience of patriarchal capitalism, it comes, if you mix gray and yellow and blue, the result, it's a result of both, So you cannot, I feel mainstream feminism for the most part is peasant. Okay. Mainstream feminism and all women empowerment things, for the most part, fail peasant women because they separate those things. It's as if women experience these things separately, that you're going to go and you're going to be paid less, and that's a capitalist issue. And then you're going to come back and then you're going to be beaten by your husband, and that's a patriarchal issue. That's not how it works. Those things are just intertwined. They're one and the same thing, because capital and culture and power work together to make it possible for women to be the laborers, because, the husband, I'm sorry for Christians, I don't know which example to use. The husband is the head, and so the woman is the laborer, And so the head gets to own title. These things, they work together, and that's how it translates to who gets to have the resources to control, but who gets also to benefit, not just from those resources, but the labors of others. Sisi ile tumeka hapa, it's very easy for us to talk vile tunaongea hapa. But if, for example, the systems of power were to sit down and anybody in power, I don't know who is the minister in charge of women's issues right now. I don't really care for them. But if you were to sit with, we were to be asked to present someone to talk or to say what Lydia and Teresia and Maria over there are talking about, it won't be them. You see? It won't be them. It will be another woman who looks like me and Asuwa. And that's... Please don't fight me. I'm using you as an example. Okay. So another woman who looks like me and Asuwa. So we tend to occupy these spaces that obscure and reduce the capacity of the women to actually organize and to speak and to do the things that they want to do, to minimize their agency. And for those of us who occupy those spaces, we come with terms like amplify, speak for, voiceless, very harmful terms. Because no woman can speak for herself. We just occupy spaces, and these spaces make it impossible for the other women to actually organize. Because ulikuwa umeongea about the directors and the unions. Like, why would you have a union separate from the women themselves when you want to work in the farms? Why can't it but that the women have their own unions and their agencies if they want to? Why does the state feel the need to impose those functions on the women? If the intention is not to keep them down and to reduce them to one specific role, which is a supplier of labor, in a slave of all of the rest of all of us, I don't know. But yeah. So I think to ground us on how the system actively works to situate us in different, I want to say powerless, but minimizes us, our agency and exploitation. It exploits us. So we are all exploited differently, but most of us more than others. And I think the onus is in all of us to also look back and see how the positions we occupy contribute to the exploitation and the minimization and the agency and the reduction of agency of others. So at this point, initially we were to begin with just a view of this, but because of, I don't want to say technical problems, but let me say unavoidable. But we sincerely and deeply apologize for that, and please don't get tired. My mom usually says this thing that if you don't sit down and you listen to someone, you will never really engage with that someone. So sometimes conversations really demand of us to just sit through to be able to engage, because otherwise it looks like those job things where we are always talking about efficiency. But life shouldn't be about efficiency. Life should be about living and feeling and enjoying the moment. So, yeah, I was also organized for tea just in case you feel like your system is going down. So I am going to give Lydia or Teresia, just on account of what we've said, how you feel, and ile kitu tu umeona ama unafikiria imekuja kwa nini, ama vile unaona unaweza sema, and then I will quickly take us through what this documentary was and what it communicates about the women, and then we are going to come to the organizing, what the women are doing. I hope that's fine. You're also welcome to suggest how you think we can kick it up a notch. Wamama wamechoka.
You're asking how we are feeling to be here.
No, as in from vile tu umesikia tukiongea, we unaonaje?
Okay, sawa. We say knowledge is power. So we have also learned something. Our minds are opened. So when you go back to the village, I think we'll try to be enlightened. Since this is our first forum, we have seen what you are doing. So when we go back to the village, I think we'll utilize that chance and try also the challenges we are having to be a stepping stone to another level.
Yes. Yeah. So I don't know where my helper or collaborator has gone to, But I just want to take us through this. This documentary was produced by Dr. Njeri Kinyanjui, who has grown up in the coffee estates. So she's a product of the life there, and I guess that contributes to the inspiration to the production of this documentary. It's really short, but we're not going to watch all of it. Just pick up a few issues. And at the beginning, there's this woman who our internet also seems not to be on our side. I don't know. But the first woman, I don't know, when it loads, you'll see. The woman is talking about how they've never had anybody come teach them anything about farming, And she talks about having to go as a young girl, going to the farm with the mother and the other women. And that she's come from that place, learned how to plant, how to care for the tea, for the coffee. And now she can't do it, and her children are doing it. See? So for me, that was important because you see that the knowledge and the creation and the, the transmission of knowledge, farming knowledge, that's in the custody of the women themselves. It's owned by the women. The women are the generators of that knowledge. So to the extent that it is the global world, the global corporations that get to determine prices, coffee prices and tea prices, that's theft of knowledge. They keep talking about intellectual. No, they're planting seeds, but they have no knowledge of how to care for what those seeds are, how to properly. You're a farmer, right? You go and you know. I've seen Susan and other members of KPL when we are doing they're doing the tree planting. There's a way they tell you, put it like this, make sure it's like this, check it after, that knowledge, it's with the women, But that's also knowledge that is completely obscured when it comes to any mention of benefits, be it monetary, be it ownership, be it of any kind. That knowledge is just swept. I don't even think under rug, because you can lift the rug, but it's just swept away. Why? Because if it's identified with the women, then it's not important, And that's something that I think should make us angry as women, but also as colonized peoples, whether men or women, right? Because it's theft of knowledge. How is it that, I think that's the woman, so just at the beginning, yeah.
I did with them. So I need to get it down, need to it. To me, also, don't know how would it. Tuanitanios and the Aliokaidi to Canini. To get to Ragona, Calera, Naniga, Eunic Caralea. Eu como Horoana com Peredi que menha. A má directa. De Maria got 250. Kumaro Sini, Calio Cataneri. Macoimit.
Yeah. But you can see that knowledge. So if for example, my mother or Lydia's mother was to decide not to teach her anything about coffee farming, then the survival of that family from then on is challenged indefinitely, right? And the children will probably be forced to go and seek other forms of manual labor elsewhere, which do not even allow them access rights. At least for Lydia, there's access rights. You have at least a farm you can go to and pick and sell, But when you don't have access rights, that becomes even harder. So I really, really wish for us to think about the knowledge of women and how it is appropriated by world markets, by the state, so that even the women never feature. Then the other thing which they had already mentioned is how the women are talking about how all the money that they earn from the tea is not enough to meet their household needs. Like you labor throughout the day, probably from mnaendanga shamba asubuhi saa mbili, and then you come late in the evening. Yes. So you've spent a good chunk of the day on the farm. How many more hours do you have to do anything meaningful that will generate income? It's not there. I mean, you can only work, I don't know. I'm a lazy person, so there's only so much I can do. So you can imagine if at the end of the day you get paid 200 shillings or 250 shillings, and all the women here understand the daily demands of a household. Sometimes you come home and your baby is sick. You come home and your neighbor has a challenge, needs, we all want to be helpful to each other. But we are reduced to objects that even showing up for your neighbor becomes a challenge because you have nothing to offer. So you can imagine we are living in, not even imagine, we are really living in a society where even the illusion, the illusion of working for something, it's not there. Like you're given this illusion, but it's not a reality. It intentionally makes you live below par. So that you keep coming, you keep struggling, you keep fighting, you keep breaking your back, but you will never really make it. Which is why we have to have that conversation about how we move on from here and what the women are doing. Because that's an injustice to ask people to live like that. Yeah.
Nĩ ũrĩmi ũcio rĩ, wega kũrekeria batie rĩ, ĩtingĩhota kũrũgamĩrĩra gũkũ. Nĩ tondũ ti mbia njega. No nĩ tũkĩhinyagĩrĩria ho nĩgetha tũtigakĩmate. One.
Wona wahanda gĩcani kĩanina mwaka ũmwe na nuthu rĩ, gĩtigũkĩneneha. Mwaka na nuthu matikomagio rĩu unagĩra haha igũrũ nona. Ugathiĩ unĩte tuothe tũcutĩte ta maya mathangũ mau maumĩrĩte mothe ũthiĩ ũtuĩte na ũcoke unie o hanini nĩguo rĩu etereria kinya hau rĩ rĩu ũtikũkĩanjia kuma ũgĩtuaga tũgagĩtwara haha centa ĩno tũgakĩendia twendia tũrarutwo rĩu kũnia gramu 5 magagĩthiĩ itinga mathiĩ rĩ mambaga kũingĩra GL
the women
macoka magathiĩ makaingĩra kũu.
So you see, I think just the slide before, you see the woman saying the challenges we go through is because we the women are the ones who feed our children, which is why from my own analytical space, I don't like it when we separate gender and the economy and everything. Because when you separate gender from what is happening in the economy, you don't see what keeps the women coming back to the farms. You don't get to see that, So the women, if the women had a choice as women themselves, without the children, and they had the freedom that most of the men have to go to the pubs, it's not like they have a fetish for suffering, do they? They wouldn't, So the conditions and the challenges that the women face are tied to the economic policies, systems that we have and live under. That's why the women keep coming back. That's why the women are saying, but we don't have a choice. We have to accept it. Because you also understand that you're going back home and you're going to find your baby telling you, the teacher says we should take this to school. But the men have is it called convenience? I don't know. They have the convenience of saying, go ask your mother. And they have the convenience of leaving the house and going to drink, and no one will hold them accountable. But patriarchal capitalism makes men the heads and the controllers of the house. So they will beat these women if they don't do what they want them to do. So you see, you cannot separate the economy. So the women will keep coming back, which is why I think as we start discussing what the women are doing, that we see it in that perspective, that the challenges of gender must be solved also through the challenges that we're experiencing collectively through exploitative and predatory economic and social policies. Yeah. So we can move to there's a woman. So there's a woman who's talking about just there at the tea, you can find there at the tea collection center. Yeah.
That they lack infrastructure in the sense that the buying centers have no infrastructure. They have to stand again. And these buying centers have no resting place, they have no water, and they have no good toilets. So the women work under very difficult conditions. The other is that the women have no insurance in their job. They work until they are very old.
Iria tugeragera muno ithuĩ ta atumia rĩ nĩ gũkorwo nĩ ithuĩ tũbindaga ciana. Ona okorwo mũndũ nĩ akĩgeragia wathiĩ thikũ ũkarĩhwo ũkagũrĩra ciana mũtu rĩ itingĩigana mũtu na cigane gũthomithia ciana. Ĩyo nayo charity ĩrĩa tũkorwo nayo nene tondũ ona twatua macani athuri mathiaga makoya marũni tũkahana ta twatuĩkire ngombo cia kũrĩha marũni mau. Ĩyo nĩyo charity ĩrĩa tũkorwo nayo nene. Rĩu twageria kũgaya thikũ ĩno rĩ twarĩhwo rĩ ĩkarega kũgaĩka. Twageria kũgaya mbeca ici nĩgetha cigane kũrĩo nĩ ciana itingĩigana ũtagĩkorwo wĩ handũ ũra invest ũraigithia. Ũcio nĩ thĩna ũmwe. Thĩna ũngĩ okorwo nĩ macani ta maya nĩ marathiĩ ũgakora nĩ marwarire kana mĩaka.
So we can also just look at the material, like, you know, there's the experience you have as an individual. Like, if you know you get flus frequently, like my sister Sisi, you walk around with the mask. Because you understand yourself that way. So you see that for the women is that they are forced to work in these spaces that do not take their daily experiences of being a woman into consideration. You know, like I understand as a woman, I probably need clean toilet facilities. I'll probably need a comfortable place to sit. There's a way, all of us, some of us are women here, we know we need these things. But the spaces in which the women are the ones who work there predominantly, do not take those into account. So when you force women who have to pick tea throughout the day to also lift the tea and come and stand for long hours in queues, do you see how the system is intentional in communicating to women that you people, you are slaves, take it and go home, you know? And so, again, I go back to this obscurity that we have created in our advocacies or activism or I don't know, whatever it is you call yours, that obscurity. Because when we sit in a forum like this, it doesn't feel, the reality is different. It doesn't feel like sitting in a collection center or standing in a collection center for 3-4 hours. So it's also that we need to question ourselves to the extent that we can grasp the material conditions of these women. How humanistic can we also be able to relay? Because these are people. How can we humanize the experiences of these women? How can we relay them in a humanizing way? And when I say relay, I don't mean to any exploitative authority. I mean to each other, so that it informs our action, so that it informs the strategies that we undertake to push back against systems of oppression, systems of exploitation, and systems of domination. Because it is violence. This is something that when we talk about abolition and carcerality, we are saying certain forms of torture. We talk about certain forms of torture. Of course, we don't approve of torture, but there are certain forms of torture that ukisikia mtu alifanyiwa, you get blood chills. But those are the same things that these women, some of them are the same things that these women have to endure in their daily life. And they are not even in prison. And they are not even directly associated with the carcerality that happens. But it is a form of carceral system. Because what sin or what have they done to justify that kind of? But these centers, even the authorities, the KTDs and the directors, you are to be seen to supply your labor and not to talk. That's essentially what it's saying. So I think in terms of humanizing, that even us in our spaces, to really confront the reality of living in a space where your experience of being a woman, of being a person, is completely erased. Yeah. So we can move to, before we move, we'll come back to what the women are doing, which has to do with the bananas. I want us to go to the world market. There's a woman who's talking about the world market. Yeah, they're talking about labor. They bring their children to the farm. Okay, so that's a challenge of YouTube. When she finds it, we'll talk. But basically, we are talking about the different forms of labor. How this lady.
Na homa nyingi goku gutu ni gukwa kuiba maguru na guturwo ni githuri ndetia kwera macani uria magituonetie thina haha niwe athuri mbeca cia kinya cia mwisho wa mweri na bonus athuri no ni mendete macohi muno magithie kirabu niguo mundu akanywa mbeca ciothe ni gukombithagio mbia mabengi agacoka okuo agakomba iria akienda agekomba ri turia aranyure twa mweri na bona thiri agacoka agakomba ingi ningi icio ingĩ ciothe agatwara kundu ku riu atumia guku riu ni sacrifice no ute wira uria ukumenya nigetha uthomithie ciana no riu atumia ri no ni magithomithagia na ni mekaga maundu maingi muno.
The other thing they face is poor roads. You see that the roads are poor, they have no running water in their homes, they have no health facilities close to where they live, they have no health facilities close to where they live, they have no health insurance, and they work for long hours.
Nigetha tutigakimate aca ndihotaga tondu githiro kwa ni handite marigo riu no mandeithiririe nigetha marigo macio ri makandeithiriria to
Yes. So this should start our conversation when we are trying to think collectively with you all about what we can do. So the woman is still just saying that because tea can't cut it, we've decided to intercrop with bananas. And like Asuwa was explaining, that is illegal, even though the women do it, So whereas the system forces you to plant a crop you can't eat, it also doesn't want you to plant something you can actually eat. But it does not allow enough hours of the day for you to look for alternative ways of sustaining or earning something to support your survival. And I think we had mentioned, or Lydia had mentioned earlier, the fact that the payments, if you submit your tea or coffee in December, the payments will come in July. So in between, what are you supposed to be surviving on? Right? So the women have to think about how to sustain survival to meet the needs of their children. And when we're talking about survival here, remember, it's not usually even about the individual woman. It's about the children at home. It's about the grandmother. It's about the elders who can't do their, who can't function normally as they would. It's about community work. They need to go clean the church. African women love going to the church to clean and to welcome the pastor. It's about all these things. So when you're talking about meeting survival, they have to now think about how to meet all these needs outside of this thing that preoccupies their daily life. And so you see the women beginning to intercrop. And I think it was in the early 1980s and maybe late 70s when the women decided to uproot the tea and coffee. Yes. Okay. Yeah, it was in the 80s. The women decided to uproot because why are you telling us that we must plant this crop? I work, I labor on a daily basis, and I get nothing. I'm suffering. When my children come and ask me, they want biscuits or they want sweets, I can't give them. And yet my body is consistently, permanently tired, permanently ailing. So this also speaks to the agency that women have, that they see the violence of the system. They identify with it. I mentioned that as a critique again of the formations in which we exist as, quote, activists, feminists, and everything, because we don't seem to remember that these women have agency, that they have a convocation for knowledge. When we say we speak for, we amplify. Because for them, it's like being, I know all of us have never been like in a literal war zone, but you have watched the movies where people are there's no time to think, right? Like you're thinking, but you have to think fast, right? So these women are stuck in the middle of that thinking fast, because you need to meet the needs of those around you and of yourself. So a strategy or the act of intercropping is meant, okay, I will give you, I love this. Where's the other mic?
I'm actually feeling incited to say something because my father comes from Moranga and my mother comes from Nyeri. In Moranga we have tea leaves and Nyeri we had coffee. In fact, I was telling her, my grandmother led on the revolution of plucking coffee. And I remember, I think that is where I get the activism from. But one of the things that central regions, because this is central regions, one of the main things about monocropping is that they refused our people anything to do with planting anything extra. In fact, if today you go to the central region, something as simple as tomatoes, we have to bring them from Nairobi to Nyeri, which is really weird. Because you expect you are going to the farms, but when you reach there, you get one potato that you buy for, right now there are 10 bob. You get that one for 10 bob is 10 shillings. And that is Nyeri. And again, there was a time that coffee and that tea used to be very, very hard money. But with the eras of Moi coming forth, the prices, the brokers came up and everything happened. And from that time, the little money they get, and that's something, let me address them, then come back to you. That besha iria nyigi, shoka hedea, they call it what? bonus thinywe mugiraga ni athuri magiraga na mathie makoragwo metereirwo ni maraya ni makana ni maheni. No, you say the truth. No na goko, this is a safe space, mutikahena ni mwarie ma, speak the truth, because there is the coffee and tea is paid only once, and that time it's not we ladies, because you are married into this, and so most of the farms are generational. And now your husband is the owner of that part of the land. He's the one, even if the account is his. So when that bonus comes, the woman who has been laboring is the man who go to get the money, and that is the time you hear people come from Mombasa to Nyeri, to Moranga, to all these places. So when the woman goes to ask for that money, what happens? So now they have to go and pluck the coffee in other people's farms, not because they do not have, but because they never get that money. You know, sometimes the husband will come after the money is over and give 110 excuses. And since, as a woman, praise the Lord, I really do not want to live. Where will I take my children? Neither do I want to question, because my in-laws are looking. So the woman is left suffering and taking loans to educate the children. And remember, you cannot plant simple things like potatoes, tomatoes, kumawiki, that kitchen garden that gives you daily food. So sometimes the liberation has to be, the system is wrong. Because that for me is still colonial. Because this is not our indigenous food. Our indigenous food is good as it is. Because something like Kanzela, something like Managu, even the outside world is looking for it now. And organic. But when you go to central regions, most of our foods, you cannot get soil that is not healthy, a soil that is healthy. And you find, like, I've been with KPL, and my aunt took me seriously with my mom, and they have started treating the soil. And people are coming to see what is so different about your food now. Because they keep on telling everybody, we have been told about organic food, and now look at how healthy our food is. And everybody's wondering, you're in Nyeri and you have healthy food. So it sounds very different. So again, number one is, right? Pole nina interchange. So that at how ni walete. Oreto gweshiria na oreto gweka. And remember, onaweko ugosho mugudani wako. That farm is yours. Where tamudu, make that decision. That niyo na niha hari from here to there. Either all ya unapanda jina kwera utuweke mulemi. Onatogothi kwa dhana kwa nyino kulima kuna vile tunafanyanga kama ngunia unapanda, kuna mtu atakukataza kupanda kwa ngunia, unapanda sukuma, you plant your own skumas there, you plant your own potatoes there and whatever, so that now I think this is a bigger conversation, because where now violence comes in and the woman has no right to get the money. Now what do? And they cannot stop farming. So I think this is a big conversation. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Faith. If you are inspired or motivated, agitated, you're welcome. Please. This is a sharing forum. Please feel free to share. And because most of us are children of African women, so we've seen our mothers go through different versions of similar experiences. Please feel free to share, because this is how, when we go back home, we talk to our moms and we expand our network and we come together and push back against state violence. Because state violence encompasses the economic, the social, the political, but the state is also the institution that connects us to the global world. It takes instructions from global corporate capitalists. It takes instructions from our oppressors, from that God-forsaken land called America. All those people, and they come and they impose those things on us. Okay? So state violence for us as Africans is something that we really need to confront, right? So yeah, please feel free. And as we wind up with the docu, I want to just read something that I also, because I should have said before that that I love reading. Let me just say that, or I do research. So I got around to watching and listening to other places where farmers were talking about their experiences of tending to tea or coffee, but also dealing with world market, selling and everything. And there's this farmer called Kamau. He ironically was doing pretty well. Yeah. But he asked something that I want to read. He asked about the global market. So I wrote it the way he said it because I'm quoting him. Mostly, we are told the world market has been flooded with coffee, but we still need more explanation on why the coffee prices keep going down when we, as farmers, are still doing our best each and every hour of the day to maintain the quality of our coffee. That's from a coffee farmer in Nyeri called Kamau. The reason that stuck with me is to speak to the consistency of this drudgery that we are captive to. That since even in pre-colonial times to the neo-colonial and the neoliberal times which we are in today, the farmers are always told, if you want your coffee sold, make sure it meets these standards. If you want your coffee, sometimes there's a farmer that was talking about how when they were doing the sorting out, she experienced this waste because apparently most of her coffee beans had issues. And so she remained with the bags in the compound because they don't meet quality standards. So what you have to sell has to meet this standard that the global market demands, But at the same time, they get to dictate the price tag for you, right? So they won't cede on quality, but they don't care for the price that they give you. And I want to think about that in the context of me and you, for example. If I were doing that, would you take it? So utaenda wita kina Suza anavu niambie kujeni to deal na dem fulani hapa hivi. Yeah? Si mtakuja kunigongea mlango. So I'm asking us. Because like we have also said before, that disadvantage that we have is a creation of the system. So I'm asking us, for those of us who have some form of capitalistic privilege, what risk are we willing to take to ensure that this kind of violence does not continue? Because the women need us. What risk are we willing to take? Because you can only talk so much. When we were in another Palestine solidarity function, this came up and there's this white woman. I say white because sometimes I question the capacity of white people having been raised in like a white supremacist world to really grasp their capacity to really grasp what it means to be a colonized person, But this white woman, she said, if you are in solidarity with Palestine, your solidarity haezi baki tu haki. Yeah, you can't be in solidarity. Go, we are praying for you, Kibe. Just take heart. Yeah? So I don't want us to sit here with Akina Lydia and tell them take heart and tell them we are praying. Those prayers, those heart things, they have to be backed up by something. I don't know if I am communicating something. But that's the point, that a huge reason why global economic policies, Susan mentioned the policies and laws, right? And how they affect us. A huge reason of why these things are able to persist is because we are stuck in our own realities, where even when we are in movement spaces, in spaces that advance collectivism, they're deeply individualized. We turn them into jobs so we can get rich, so we ourselves can survive at the expense of others, So thinking about what risks we want to take, because it is a crime to keep telling farmers to throw half, sometimes 3/4 of their produce because of meeting standards. And then you slap them and insult them in their face by paying them, is it 50 shillings a kg? Like 50 shillings a kg after laboring in the farm all day, 365 days a year. It's unacceptable. So I'm urging us, even as we live today, can we reach out to each other? Can we figure out? And because we are thinking humans. We are thinking humans. And look, you see the women, they are intercropping. They are working with each other. I think it is Lydia in the documentary where you say you sometimes sleep together as women, so you are able to sort out the coffee beans. That's coping, that's survival, that's pushing back against systems of exploitation, where you would sleep tired and miserable, sitting with your other women, fellow women, and talking and sharing, and it makes the work easier, but it brings about healing as well. You don't feel alone. And those are some of the things the women do that if we can plug ourselves into, if we can look into how we live our lives and find ways to be able to strengthen those forms of solidarity, those forms of resistance against these forms of exploitation, then maybe we can now attack the state properly. Sindio? So with that, I want to open this space because my voice is not the best. I wish it was the best. I would keep going. But let's hear other voices. Karibuni sana.
Thank you very much, Azu. When I look into the documentary, I think one of the things that come into my mind is the way the system have been structured to ensure that we produce for others, but we don't produce for ourselves. So what can we do to ensure that now we are also producing for us? Because if I cannot be food secured, let me bring that an example. So how can I also capture an international market when even the local markets we have are not food secured? So it means the way the system have been structured, it has been structured in a way for us to believe that we cannot do things for ourselves. We need to be dependent on others for us to do maybe a certain thing. Let me bring the aspect of KPL with the case of the GMO in the court. We started the case in 2022. And I realized that in the process there are a lot of petitions and many people pull out. But we continue pushing and pushing and pushing until now our case is being heard. So it means that when you organize yourself and you see yourself, how can I now start from somewhere to ensure that now we are pushing and also organizing other people. And then again, taking the conversations to the community. Because we are here maybe discussing, and there is a mama somewhere who maybe is being oppressed. He does not know, how am I going to start? So I'm bringing, because when I look into the issue of the coffee, I come from Migori, where you know the issue of sugar cane. Everybody is planting sugar cane, producing for Sony sugar. And then they were forgetting to produce for their own consumption. And as I was mentioning something to that, watu wanapanda miwa hadi kwa mlango. It was happening in Migori. So the area we are in at KPL, we have ensured that now we are talking to farmers. How can you go back? How can you produce to a company that is maybe paying you after 2 years? These 2 years, you will be in the cycle of debt. By the end of the day, when you are getting that money, it is not even going to help you. So how can you start producing? This is your own farm. starting producing your own food. Look at sugarcane. It goes for like 1 year, 8 months. And if you're producing maize, it goes for 3 months. Imagine, do your calculation. How much will you have sold to ensure that now you are having your own money in your pocket instead of going to produce for other people? So to me, if we can also organize the women in Muranga for them to start producing fast for themselves before even going to the factories, because these people are oppressing them, and by the end of the day, it is the men who are now gaining on their behalf. So how can they also start producing for themselves fast? And in KPL, I think, for the last 8 years that we have been there, we have tried to organize in the spaces we are in to ensure that now farmers are understanding, taking control of their land, of their seed, and of what they are producing. And again, now looking to the aspect of the local market, because now we cannot talk about producing internationally. If you will, I think it was in 2 years or when the government was saying that we don't have enough food. That is why they're introducing the patented seeds, the GMO seed, to curb the issue of the hunger in Kenya. But in reality, farmers are there. The food is there. The problem is now access to the local market. So how are we ensuring that now farmers are having access to the local market? People are getting the right food that they need so that we can curb the situation whereby people are coming to tell us how we can produce our own food, and also trying to make sure your process yote ni hao wako in control of. It is high time also we learn to take control over what we are producing, and also not taking maybe condition from other people, trying to maybe take control of our seeds. And that is why you are saying we are pushing and pushing for the issue of the seeds, to ensure that farmers have their own seeds. Hatutaki maneno, because the moment I was looking at the documentary, women are talking about arthritis and other diseases. Do you know how many chemicals are being used on those tea plants? You see? And these are affecting women. You are talking about the issue of violence. This is another violence these women are facing, but we are not looking at it in that aspect. So how are we ensuring that we are taking this conversation to the community, to these women, to understand that the system is oppressing them, and now they need to take control of their own food system?
Yeah, speaking of violence, ni kama ile documentary, you remember the true cost of our tea. Like for me, in terms of gender-based violence, it brought out clearly the fact of how GBV is an economic problem, you know. But when we advocate for it, we want to make it at ile nuclear family. Eh? Just wayward individuals just beating, you know. That's not it, you know. It's an economic problem. It's a political problem, you know. Anyway, wamama wanafanya nini? Yeah, Asuwa wanted to know, and we all want to know, what are the women doing? Kama nyinyi vile mnajipanga. Because wamama wanaorganizingi. Mko kwa chama, mko wapi?
Okay, thank you. For women to sustain themselves, we have merry-go-rounds. You contribute, you organize a group of 10. And this group of 10, maybe you can say twice a month, date 1st and 15, you'll be contributing 200, the minimum wage that person gets. So you give one, the 10 members will give 250. So the first member will get 2,500. That one maybe will be able to sustain her. Then we go round, the 10 of us. At the end, we finish, we start another merry-go-round. Maybe that person is able to buy what she doesn't have. If it's maybe school fees, these days secondary is a bit cheap. You can even get those 2,500, you pay for one term for their child in day school. So that is how farmers come together and organize themselves. So if it is the bank, we are not able to access to the bank because the interests are so high. And then still, though there are some women who take the loans from the bank, and since they do not have the knowledge to manage that money, you find that the bank is coming for what they have in the house. And now that, it brings a lot of conflicts. So now, what I can urge you is that we try to enlighten us even on finance management so that we can be able to uplift our lives. So mostly we come together and get the money. Thank you.
Lydia, nyinyi ndio the chief professors of economic management. I don't know. In my experience growing up around women, I have always known that if there are people who know how to manage, use, and save and sustain money, ni wa mama. Unaona? So they keep coming with this financial training for women, but it's just money laundering so that somebody can say ati akona kazi ama sijui ana empower. It's a lie.
During the Christmas holiday, mostly the women come together and even buy fra for each family to enjoy. So maybe they come with 10 kgs of rice, they give this one, you go rotation. So when sikuku inafika, kila home at inkona unga. Yes, so they are able to manage. Yeah, that is how we try to sustain ourselves.
And the thing is, African women don't seem to be quite rich because they're always meeting survival. They're sustaining life. Sindio? Ile pesa wanapata inanunua nguo, inanunua chakula, inanunua nini. There's no time to accumulate. What are you accumulating for? The people who are rich are accumulating and making people go hungry. Sindio? So there's a difference. The women bear the primary responsibility for subsistence, survival. The corporations, the markets, they're looking to just a pesa kwa bank and say they have shares. They have investments. Because they don't have to meet our needs. When we have needs, we go to the mother. Sindio? So we need to also understand that distinction.
I think the ways that when we address all of this, we have to address colonialism and how gender plays within capitalism. I also believe we would have played ourselves very short without addressing things like tribalism, because when you study the ways that specifically Africa, you were told where, like, how capitalism expressed itself during colonialism was, this is what you can plant, this is when you can plant it, and this is where you can plant it. And this is the tribe that we trust to plant it. And the ways that we know that we have imaginary borders is the same ways that tribalism has been created and curated, like, these people belong here, and this is what they can do in these ways. This came after a conversation that we were having with one of the people we organized with. She comes from Nyeri and was talking about the time her father got kidnapped because the dad was abducted, because the dad was organizing for people to do the uprooting again because we want our lands back. But you see, for a very long while, like in the 80s and the 70s, places like the Nyanza region and the Western region was where they were uprooting tea and coffee from. If you look at places like Siaya, it's the places they were uprooting all of this from because it was supposed to come from a very specific place. Siaya County, in terms of even food crops, they never experienced the hunger. Like even the time when Kenya was experiencing famine and all of that, there was consistent food that side. That I don't know if it's by bylaw or whatever, it does not make it. It does not go past Eldoret, and it's common knowledge that their food will never ever go past particular points. If they could feed the entire country, they'd rather trade with Ugandans. Like, it reached a point that sent maize into Uganda so that Ugandans will package it and send it to Kenya, and now it's Ugandan maize. Like, to a place, those sites, the food, they can't trade food with the rest of the country. And that is part of why I think that this conversation will be really lacking, because there is a reason why the central region is consistently being told, like, you have to give us, because the tea does not benefit you, the coffee does not benefit you, it is for someone else. It does not. And even the roses, like all of that space, and it's because of how it was demarcated before, when white people were here, that particular place was going to be the place that gives us the money. And these other places we could go and exploit in different ways, right? So that system, until it's addressed properly, because things like sugar, why people latch onto things like sugar is because Kenya became a cash crop country. And if you come from a place like that side, for you to be able to even educate your child, you need money. You can't go and trade maize for your children, right? Because that's already a system that they booted, so you can't trade anything else. You have to make money. And they've made sure that your land can't feed you. Like, you can feed you, yes, you can give you food. But we know farming is not cheap. So there is no tangible money to keep doing this. And that's why you find places like the One Acre Fund and the other corporations, where they mostly, it is the region of Nyanza, Western, like those are the places they go to, because they know already within this economic system where your land could feed you, educate your children, you've already been cut out of it. You are not going to benefit from it. And they know you need it because, again, capitalism is doing capitalism things. They know you're going to agree to that, like when I was talking about 1 million. It's not even 1 million. It's not even 1 million. Like, they offer 100K. And you will be like, okay, fine, maybe I can take this. For so long, even when we address things like solar, why is solar being taken that side? For so long, even getting one pole to go to where you're going, per pole was 100,000. Electricity, like those places got electricity last year, this year. So all of this conversation needs to happen within the complete context of what's happening, because there are people like within even that, I know it's like exploitation, but even within that exploitation, they've not been allowed to come in. Like, there is even no table.
The exploitation is on levels.
Yes, it's on levels, and it's so layered.
Exactly. And now that you mentioned the fact that there's this deliberate attempt to control the use rights that you have to your land, your ability to use your land, what you get to use your land for. It just got me thinking about, that's the same thing they're doing with this drive for, especially among pastoralist communities.
Exactly.
To tell them that now you need to stop, they're calling controlled grazing.
Controlled grazing like for conservancies.
Yes, for conservancies, but also with small-scale farmers where you're having, it's called the carbon market thing, where you're being told now you can plant trees and then you will be paid carbon credits.
Yes.
But you see, if you have even an acre of land and now you have to dedicate chunks of that land towards earning this carbon, you're reducing the area of land that you use to feed your family. But also, again, enabling their access into and to control your own parcel of land. So you might have your name on the title, but you don't get a say on how you use it. So that's just the insidiousness, I guess.
Yes, and even the ways that I think because of carbon credits and everything that is coming along, the land bill that we are going to be phased out of our lands after 99 years, like, so 99 years of you being on that land, those people have to have the capacity to pay the government again for the next 99 years for you to keep claiming that land. And then you'd find you've been living on this land for so long, but now we have all those things like, oh yeah, you have to prove that it's your land because, again, right now, the place that Kenya is at, we know, like, the carbon credits, we sold, like, some of the highest carbon credits to Israel, so that,
It's bad. I'll let Asuwa, and then, I don't know, because I know these conversations we can talk. we can talk, we can really talk, but I would love for, so you have Asuwa and then Kinuthia, any other person, or maybe one other person who will be instigated in the process of them talking, will be agitated and then they'll talk.
Yeah, so sisi ameturudisha back to the rant that we started with. But anyway, hiyo story ya stima imenigusa. Stima bado ni 100 per pole, by the way, sisi. It's still 100K per pole. So my mom needs 2 poles. So they need 206,000 from me for my mom to get connection to electricity. But what, sisi, who comes from Siaya here? My goodness, you are in deep trouble. So I have done some work in Siaya, and every time I think about Siaya, the last time I was in Siaya, I was battling tears. And it was because I was meant to facilitate, and now I would have just done the crying and not facilitate. Because, and English uses very bad terms, but to use the very bad terms of English, Siaya is very rich. Like ecologically, it has one of the largest water surfaces. So there are swamps, there are permanent rivers, there are springs, lakes. Of course, there's the largest freshwater lake, but there are like other oxbow lakes. So it has a lot of fresh water. And Siaya has also been recently discovered to have a lot of mineral deposit. So, but the same Siaya that is very rich gets lots of its food from Uganda. So there is sort of a tug of war, like a scramble and partition in Siaya between corporations that want to extract minerals and corporations that want to do big plantations of sugarcane, maize, and whatever it is that they want to do. And when Dominion left in quotes, because they usually leave and then you realize they just changed the name. So there are now more corporations wanting to go into Siaya, and they have mapped it and zoned it. They have even allocated themselves rivers. River Yala is mine, Nzoia is yours. You are going to use it for your whatever. So Siaya is in a very bad position right now. It's in a very risky position right now. And the governor is just walking around signing things while he's drunk and and selling people on a silver platter. But kuna kitu nilikuwa nataka kusema, Lydia na Teresia na nikumbushe jina lako na Wairimu. Kwa historia ya kupigana na hii system ya ubepari, watu walishindwa kuangusha mabenki, lakini unajua kina nani waliangusha benki ya kwanza? Wamama. Na niliwagusia kidogo. Wamama wa Tanzania waliungana pamoja na hiyo chama yenye mnasema. Microfinance zote za Dar es Salaam, every single microfinance in Dar es Salaam closed down. Because the women said, first of all, we are not going to put money in the bank. Secondly, we are not going to pay back the money that we have got from the microfinance. Hiyo pesa ya microfinance hatuendi kulipa. So wakikujia mmoja wetu watatupata. So every time the microfinance would come to auction, they would find women and they would tell them, you can't auction this woman's property. So pia sisi tukiamua tunaweza angusha benki. Kwa sababu niko sure hata sasa ukienda pale cooperative, kwanza hiyo Equity, mimi niko na machungu. Tuende even the way they call themselves Equity cooperative, we are you, sijui jirani, sijui whatever, you know, they wanatumia like our communal interactions to market our communal experiences. Cop kwa jirani kutukandamiza. Cop kwa jirani wako wanakukandamiza, ama yeye ndio wewe unakimbia kwake ukitaka usaidizi. So ni aje cop ni jirani yako na anakupea interest ya 20%.
So juu ukienda pia kwa hizo benki, by the way si ni nyinyi mmejaza Coop na Equity, kusema ukweli wamama nadanganya. Nikianza hapa hata random selection, mko na account Coop ama mko na account Equity, si ndio? Ama mko nayo sijui kwa hizo microfinance pia zinajiita jirani rafiki sijui nini, you know, even the audacity to like use. And I hate Safaricom for that. They have mastered the art of using taglines that appeal to our, you know, our African interactions. Undugu na uko wetu, Safaricom si ndugu yako. So tunaweza angusha benki tukiamua. Ndio maana tulikuwa tunasema, nikikaa pale nilisema wamama wakosangi njia ya kufanya kitu. Mimi nakumbuka siku yenye Kibaki alisema ati sijui hata alipa walimu miezi 6. Mnakumbuka hiyo strike yenye ilifanya karibu wa resign? Ilikuwa wamama wanat walijaza barabara ya Kisumu, hakuna kwenda Busia. Na unajua ukijaza barabara ya kwenda Kisumu, huwezi enda Busia, kumaanisha huwezi enda Uganda, huwezi enda huko pia uingie Tanzania, kumaanisha hawezi peleka Wanandi, hawezi tuletea mahindi Kisumu. Vile sisi alikuwa anasema for some reason si hatuwezi peleka mahindi huko, lakini hao wanaweza leta. But hao hawezi leta. So soko hazifanyi, magari hazifanyi. He almost resigned. Juu mama walikaa chini kwa barabara na sufuria. Kusema kama umeamua hatutakula miezi 6, basi biashara pia haitaendelea miezi 6. Huko kwenye mnatoka wamama walingoa chai na kahawa. Na wamama ndio walikuwa wanajua kupepeta maspice wenye wanakuja kupelekea wakoloni vitu. So wamama wanajua mimi naaminia ability ya wamama. Naaminia Liberia wakati wa vita wamama walisema watakaa mbele ya State House. Mkipenda you run over us, whatever you will do, but the war affects us more than it affects you. Sisi ndio tunajua mali hii vita inatugusa. Ndio kipande system yanguke South Africa, wamama walienda town wakatoa vipande na hawakuangusha. Unajua pia demo za wamama zinakuwa zinashika. Wakaangusha vipande na wakazichoma. They burnt those tags. And they said we are not going to walk around with tags on our homeland. Muliona wamama wa Marsabit pia wakiandamana wakisema hawezi peana ardhi yao 40 years please, ati mtu atawapea 20,000 ya carbon credit. So mimi naaminia sana uwezo wa wamama kujipanga. Najua wao wanatuambia hatuwezi, but we are the one running. Vile Susan alisema sisi ndio tunalisha hii nchi. By the way, bado hiyo Tanzania siku yenye wamama waliamua hawafungui kibanda, hawafungui soko, hawafanyi nini, hawakupitisha hizo laws zenye walikuwa wanataka kupita. So popote tunataka kuenda hii nchi, wamama ndio wao wanaongoza mapinduzi. Na wamama ndio wao wanaleta mapinduzi. Sasa mimi naaminia wamama sana. Mimi ndio maana niliwauliza, lazima kuna kitu mnafanya. Lazima kuna vile mnajipanga. Na hiyo kujipanga for the rest of us, because women always have ways of coping and surviving. Like Ruzuna asked, what sort of discomfort are we willing to go through, and what privileges are we willing to cede to support the women to continue? Because even in this shit that we are, trust me, it is the women that are carrying us. They are the ones that are in this despair and hopelessness. Sini wa mama ndio wametushikilia. They are the ones that are binding us in hope and praying for us. If it was not my mom always calling me and telling me it will be well, it is their faith that is carrying us. And so we have to support them. Lakini, Lydia, Teresia, Mary, wamama wanaweza jipanga. Na hiyo gatundu, mnaweza vuruga vibaya sana. Na si kitu mpya, ni kitu imefanyika before. Mmepeleka watu. Was it Gatundu ndio ilipelekanga Kibaki mbio at some point akiwa MP? Sikumbuki ni wapi. But najua kuna watu mmepepeta mkawapeleka mbio. And we can do it. We can do it. We can hata Kabogo mlimpeleka mbio. Hey. So mama tunaweza hizo ardhi tutazipata. Chakula tutalima na hakuna mtu atatuambia ngwe ati hatuwezi lima. I was very sad when I went to Nyandarua and I literally saw only 2 crops for all those kilometers that I went. And Nyandarua is a constantly wet place with eucalyptus trees ndio watu wamejaza na sijui nini. And I'm like, this place can produce food. But because people are being forced to produce specific things and with very, very harmful pesticides, watu wanashinda wako kwa gloves. Surely, chakula yenye wewe huwezi shika na mkono yako. How is it fit for human consumption? Food that you are supposed to be heavily covered to handle. How are you supposed to eat it? But me, I still have a lot of belief and hope that even if I die before it happens, wamama, tunaweza angusha hii system na si ati nini. Tunaweza iangusha na tunaweza tengeneza yetu yenye inatufaa. After all, bado tunatengeneza hizo pockets za hiyo system yetu yenye inawaka kwa hii yenye inatukandamiza. Si bado mnashikana kama wamama, mnasaidiana. Leo nilikuwa nasikiza wamama wa Samburu wanahama. They delegate their children to other women. Juu hataki mtoto wa interrupt shule akienda kutafuta pasture. They leave their children for other women. They go and look for pasture. Akimaliza shule atakuja kumchukua. So you really when people were in the armed resistance, women walikuwa wanatengeneza daycares na makreshe. Wanasema since Teresia wewe umeamua kubeba bunduki, mimi Lydia nitabaki na watoto. So women used to do that. Mary atasema Teresia by the alienda kubeba bunduki. Akaona chakula huko kwenye ameenda bunduki. Atasema mimi kazi yangu ni kupelekeanga Teresia chakula huko kwenye ameenda kubeba bunduki. So hata kama historia imetufuta, hizo ni vitu zenye tumefanya before na tutafanya tena na tena na tena. So mimi naaminia that wamama tunaweza. Asante. Asante.
African women on the front line.
Organize, educate, liberate, celebrate.
My name is Kinuthi Andungu, an organizer with Kasarani Social Justice Center. I think even just reflecting from my village, in a recent piece that I had written about a lady from my village who, after laboring in the husband's tiny piece of land, after the husband died, again, there is a neighbor who now decided to steal this land from, this widow. And when she could not get any justice, she just decided to take, the actions on her hands and I just killed that rich man from my village. But this is just one, of the narratives, of the struggles that women go through. Still, from my village, you've heard of Kakuzi and Del Monte, where, women are raped and killed for, just picking firewood to go and make a meal for their kids. But importantly, I think through the conversation, we've been able, to highlight the women's struggle, as a systematic, issue, and even look at patriarchy as a manifestation, of the dominant socio-political and economic, system. Even our comrade there had talked about, colonial agriculture, which is also very important when we're also trying to understand the women oppression. But if then we have that clarity that the women, the women's struggle is also, a struggle against unjust power. Therefore, it means that the struggle for women liberation is also, a very political struggle. Of course, through history, we've seen, a lot of reforms that have, a lot of reforms to uplift the women But again, we agree, if these women are also struggling, against imperialism, there are no reforms that are going to, completely make women achieve the things that they want for them to enjoy, dignity. And therefore, it is important for us to first continue with what we are doing, which is, political education that we've been doing among the women and also among the men, using art and such, sessions to clarify the women question so that people don't understand it as a battle of sexes, but also men understand the importance of fighting, side by side with the women. And again, importantly, it is, I remember even Ruzuna had organized, I think it was the Muranga women, Muranga women, a play, which was also another way of doing political education among the people. But importantly, if you go back to the village where I come from, and a lot of villages, you realize it is impossible for you to ascend to political power without the women. And therefore that tells you, of the important role that, women can play in shaping, even the small reforms that they want in the villages. You see, for you to win, you have to, to bring women together, bribe them with, lesos. I don't know how you call lesos in English. Bribe them with lesos, at least a packet of maize from, they are poor. You bribe them with packets of maize and at least you're guaranteed that you'll be elected. But with constant, education or, for the women, therefore, they can understand that when we have the right leadership, at least then we can be able to implement some reforms that can at least move them from, their present material realities to at least some place that is much better. But importantly, they must participate now in the national, political struggle. Because for us to win against, even the forces of imperialism in the country, then the women have to be, on the front line. Mao tells us that women hold half the sky, and there's no doubt, about that. Long live the women in the struggle. Long live.
Long live. Thank you so much. I think we've come to the end. I know this conversation, unfortunately, is not one conversation that ends. It's a conversation that I think should continue in our houses, in our workplaces, in our, the thing about capitalism is how it individualizes and fragments struggles. And then we have spaces for A, we have spaces for B, but the violence is, it's what's the word? Permissive. It permeates everywhere. And so when we default to this idea of spaces where this is time for politics or this is time now to talk about this, we are defaulting to, we are acquiescing to the violence, I think. So I urge us, as we live here, Asuwa is my friend, Charity is my friend. We talk about these things even when we are in our houses just chatting and taking tea and gossiping about other things. These things come up. It's also how we learn. So even as I wind here, Lydia, tunashukuru sana, Teresia, Maria, mkienda, anything important ama umeona imekuguza roho, you take it back to the other women, because I know you are in groups. Na si chama moja huko najua, uko kwa mingi. You share and let the other women also share with you, because now we know you. So we will call you and you will tell us what the other women are saying. And then we create knowledge like that. And then we solidify action, Evo, unaona. So I am urging us, and my space, I think, in terms of my politics, I don't even encourage women like myself to think about inclusion and representation, because it means you're being included and represented in systems that are violent in and of themselves. The only advantage that is there is that as the individual woman, utakuwa na guards. Pengine, if you become a parliamentarian, you'll be walking around with guards, driving a V8. That's not empowerment for women. That's your own individual thing. It does not change the system. It's not a win for any women, even for you yourself. You have not won anything. Unaona? You just get to accumulate more than others. Unaona? So for me, it's about thinking about how to develop alternative spaces where we can feed our children, where our children can have spaces to play, to grow, unaona, without facing violence. Unaona? We can create these spaces. Huku ni kwetu. The titles, our names might not be in the titles, but hii shamba ni yetu sisi wa Afrika. Foreigners, I don't know what foreigners mean politically, but the oppressors, the oppressors cannot tell us what to do with our land. They shouldn't. So, tukitoka hapa, I am urging us to think. There's this thing, let me wind up with this thing I picked it from someone and I usually gossip it around. So, George Jackson, he says, to the extent that we must talk to or even negotiate with the oppressors, it has to be in terms of repatriation and repatriation only. No, give us this, I give you that. No. Repatriation and reparation, sorry. I don't know why I'm saying repatriation. Reparation and reparation. Reparation inamaanisha mturudishie yetu yenye mlichukua na reparation. Mturudishie na mlipe yote yetu yenye mulichukua. Unaona? You give back our land. You give back our resources and you stop control of anything that belongs to us. Unaona? If you are going to give us money, you give us money, zero conditions. We get to decide what we do with the money that you give. So to the extent that we have to negotiate or come to the table with any form of office that is a representative of the oppressor, ikuwe tu reparation. Hakuna kubagain. Hizi ma reports zenye tumekwa tukiandika tunachoka. They are useless. Because we Africans, we mothers have always been producers. Watu wa KPL. We have always been producers. If we accept that the oppressor can come and tell us and teach us how to produce, then we also accept that we are not producers. Is that true? Eh? Are we willing to accept that we are not? If we are not producers, what are we? It means we have been objectified, like robots, puppets, do this. Can we accept that? So because we are producers, we not only produce food, we also produce knowledge, we also produce every other thing. So hatuta kufa ama hatuta enda extinguished because we refuse the demands of the oppressor. Tusiogope. Unaona? Because he uses our survival against us. Most of us are afraid because if I do like this, they'll come for me. And then watoto wangu watabaki na nani? We have a right to be afraid. But let not our fear work against us. Does that make sense? Let not our fear work against us. Producers must produce, and we are producers, and we must produce the liberation of our people. Asanteni sana, chai iko pale, karibuni.
Asanteni sana, mkumbuke 1st August we will be at the Kenya National Theatre for our Pan-African Cultural Day. And remember to get your tickets on Hustle Sasa for the Muranga Women's Strike play. Now, Mary is also Kuja. Mary is also one of us. Tumesema sisi wanawake tuko na triple shifts, vitu mingi zenye tunafanya. So behind the scenes, Mary ndio huwa anahakikisha that we have tea and we have food, and she also makes very good pastries. So when you have events or anything, please patronize Mary in the spirit of
surviving under this very capitalistic system. So I'd request us to stand just to, in thanksgiving and in recognition of our grandmothers and mothers and aunties who have gone before us, and in recognition of the labor of love and the struggle that has gone into the territories that Kina Lydia are occupying in Gatundu, but also to, I know we are in times of despair and hopelessness, but hatuwezi kata tamaa. Hatuwezi sema sasa tumeacha. And I know that's easy to say as someone who has been in despair and hopelessness. But I just want, as Lydia, Teresia na Mary, juu nyinyi mmetoka hapo. Najua pia sisi tuna occupy hiyo place, but nyinyi mmetoka literally kwenye battleground. Ilikuwa for a very long time, in remembrance and thanksgiving kwa kazi yenye wamama walifanya, wamama wenye walikuja mbele yenu, na yenye bado nyinyi mnafanya kuhold hiyo baton kuendelea. Nataka kusema asanteni sana sana sana. Na kwa sisi sote, to all of us, as I was saying, in these times of despair and hopelessness, personally I am very grateful to my mom and my grandma. They have held me. Those phone calls have meant a lot. And to Ruzuna, who I am always ranting to every other time, and Ruzuna's mother, who has also become part of that community that is holding us together. And I know, if I ask you guys, your grandmas and your aunties and your mothers, they are holding you in faith and in hope. And let's always remember that public office that they occupy in carrying us and holding us and supporting us. Even with their own problems, they put their problems aside at the expense of our problems. And so let's always remember to honor and respect that public space that those women, that public office that those women hold in our lives. Recognize it and be thankful to them, and let that love and care and nurturing that they give us fuel us to make a better world, to make a world that does not fragment us into classes and binaries and linearities and all those things. So tutasonga kwa mapinduzi, tukomboe Afrika na wananchi wote. Tutasonga kwa mapinduzi, tukomboe Afrika na wananchi wote. African women on the front line. Afrika moja. Afrika huru. Afrika moja. Afrika huru. Karibuni sana chai na mpitie duka yetu. And remember to follow our socials, Women Solidarity Network on X, Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook.